At 11:43 p.m., my phone lit up on the kitchen counter. "Don't come in tomorrow." It was from Mark, my VP. No greeting, no punctuation beyond that period, like a door slamming. I wiped a coffee ring with my thumb, unlocked the screen, and typed 4 words I'd kept in my back pocket for 2 months. "Don't check your email." Send. Then I set a 10-minute timer and turned the phone face down. I don't grandstand. I don't slam doors. I keep receipts. For 6 months, I'd been told to be a team player, while Mark padded vendor invoices and shaved hours off my team's timesheets, because overtime optics spooked the board. I flagged it quietly. I asked for clarity in writing. I was told to take it offline. After the 3rd offline talk that died in a hallway, I started documenting like my job depended on it, because it did. The apartment was silent except for the refrigerator's tired hum and the timer ticking on the stove. My laptop was open to one window, a scheduled message in our compliance mailbox. 10 minutes from now it would push 3 packets at once, one to the CEO, one to the audit committee, one to our external counsel. No speeches, just copies of purchase orders, ACH patterns, a timeline of performance terminations that lined up perfectly with quarter-end margins. Every claim cross-referenced against system logs I didn't control anymore, because 3 weeks ago I'd exported hashes and sent them to a neutral repository the legal team uses for hold notices. Immutable. I'd copied myself out of power the same day I realized Mark thought fear was a lock he could keep reusing. I opened the fridge and took out yesterday's pasta, 8 standing up. The fork tapped the bowl every 3rd bite. I wasn't bracing for a fight. I was making good on one. On the counter sat a sealed envelope with my badge and a printed handover I'd written 3 times to get the tone right. Neutral, respectful, complete. Who owns what? Where the backups live? What's already rotated? The last thing I wanted was the story that I'd sabotaged systems. I had not. I had vacuumed the house and left the keys under the mat. The phone buzzed face down against the wood. Once, then again, then a stubborn 3rd time. I flipped it. A bubble from Mark appeared over 2 missed calls. What does that mean? No question mark. He never used them. I didn't reply. I watched the timer. 9 minutes. On screen, the cursor blinked in an empty Slack draft addressed to my team. I kept the words small. "I'm out tomorrow pending HR. Please push tickets through queue order and escalate to legal if asked for verbal approvals. You are not to work unpaid overtime under any circumstance. If anyone pressures you, route to the hotline, numbers below." Under it, I pasted the numbers and added one more sentence I knew they would recognize as the only part of me that bled. No heroics. The system is not your family. A car rolled by outside and splashed through a shallow puddle. In the building across, a window TV flickered blue on somebody's ceiling. My stomach settled around the pasta. I checked the packets one more time. The first contained a single page, a table of invoice IDs, amounts, and bank tails, with a column labeled Overage versus Statement of Work. No adjectives. The second was a narrative timeline with hyperlinks to HR tickets I had filed, in real time each time hours went missing or on-call stipends got temporarily suspended. The third was a 2-paragraph note saying exactly what I had done tonight. Scheduled release, no destructive changes, all access already rotated off my personal credentials and documented in the handover. I had a copy of the security desk's form filled out with my badge number and the time I planned to drop it. 8 minutes. The phone vibrated again, a new line from an unknown number. "This is Dan with Colt River Solutions. We need to talk. Urgent." Colt River was the vendor Mark brought in. Their SOW was vague. Their invoices were not. Another buzz, HR. "Let's connect first thing." Then my junior admin, Lucas. "Are you okay?" I typed, deleted, typed again. "I will be. Get some sleep. Turn your phone on D&D. I washed the bowl, wiped the counter, turned off the kitchen light so the apartment fell into the kind of quiet that makes you hear the electricity in the walls. In my office, I zipped my backpack, laptop, printed copy of the Access rotation, 2 pens, nothing else. The silence made it easier to hear the way my own breath changed when I thought of the nights my team sat on a bridge call until 3 a.m. to push a patch that only existed because Colt River kept missing deadlines, and Mark insisted we help them shine. I wasn't angry now. Anger is noisy. I wanted silence. Clean, documented silence. 7 minutes. Another call from Mark. Then a text. "You're making a mistake." I typed no, then erased it and set the phone back down. I took the envelope with my badge and slid it into the backpack front pouch. I checked the lock on the door, even though I wasn't leaving yet. Old habit. Crisis makes people bang on doors they ignored for months. I opened my email and drafted a short message to Legal's general mailbox with a subject line I chose carefully: Document Preservation and Access Handover. In the body I wrote, "Please confirm receipt of the scheduled materials. I will be available at 8 a.m. for any instructions. I will not access systems absent written guidance." I CC'd my personal counsel, who had 2 lines from me: "Sending now, standing by." He'd asked me twice if I was sure. I was. The worst thing you can leave an abuser is plausible deniability. The second worst is silence they can fill with their version of events. The timer went under 5. I walked to the window and watched my own reflection float over the dark glass. I looked tired, older than I felt. I thought of the meeting last month when Mark smiled with his teeth and told me the layoffs would be surgical and temporary. The spreadsheet said otherwise. The day after those emails, I booked a 30-minute consult with a whistleblower attorney and asked him 2 questions: what not to do, and how to ensure my team would be protected if this turned ugly. His answers became my checklist. Tonight was just the last box. The phone vibrated with a call that wasn't a number I recognized, and when I declined it, the voicemail preview crawled across the top. "This is Amanda from Audit Committee. Please call." 3 minutes. I typed back, "Email in flight. Will be at HQ 8 a.m. She responded with a single, "Received." No fuss. Just a line that told me the train tracks were already humming. I opened my front door for a second and listened to the stairwell. Quiet. I closed it, locked it, and sat back down. 20 seconds. My cursor hovered over nothing. There was nothing left to do except let the thing I had built leave my hands. 10 seconds. The screen clock flipped. Somewhere deep in an Exchange server, rules I had set 2 days ago picked up their payloads and began to move them where they needed to go. The phone lit up mid-vibration. New email, auto-reply from legal. "Hold initiated." Another from the CO's assistant. 9:15 a.m. Conference A. Another from HR asking me to refrain from contacting colleagues until we'd debriefed. I closed my eyes at the phrasing and opened them again. I wasn't contacting anyone. I'd already said what needed to be said. Mark called again, then again. His texts arrived in a stagger. "What did you send? We can fix this." "Pull it back. Answer me." He finally added a question mark. I didn't answer. I put the phone in my pocket, slipped on my jacket, and sat with my hands on the backpack straps until my pulse fell back into its slot. The room felt the way a server room feels when the fans are spinning correctly. White noise, no alarms, everything green. At 11:58 p.m., a message from Lucas slid into my screen before I could close the lid. "They're saying systems might go down." I typed, "They won't. Sleep." I shut the laptop, killed the lamp, and let the apartment go dark. The timer bell rang softly and then went quiet. Outside, another car hissed past on wet asphalt. I crouched to tie my shoes, stood, and finally let myself think one small human thing I'd avoided all night. I didn't have to show up tomorrow and pretend I couldn't count. The phone buzzed once more against my leg, a final attempt at control disguised as urgency. I didn't look. The emails were already where they needed to be. The house was clean. The keys were under the mat. I sat back down at the table, folded my hands, and waited for the night to finish its work. Because in the morning I would walk into the building and hand over what was mine, and only what was mine. And there would be no yelling, no bargaining, just the quiet sound of paper sliding across a desk. While somewhere down the hall a door opened and someone realized the handle they'd always pulled no longer turned the way it used to. 7:42 a.m. I stood outside the building watching people badge in, each swipe punctuated by the same metallic beep that had started every one of my mornings for 5 years. I hadn't slept, didn't need to. The air smelled like rain and burnt coffee from the cafe downstairs. I waited until the clock on my phone hit 7:45, then stepped forward, badge in hand, envelope sealed. The security guard, Terry, nodded from behind the glass. "Rough morning, huh?" "Looks like it," I said. He scanned my badge. The reader flashed red, then yellow, then red again. Terry frowned. "It says inactive. Want me to call HR?" "No need." I slid the envelope toward him through the gap. "That's for them. Just let them know I'm here." He hesitated. "You're not in trouble, are yous?" "Not the kind you can see from here," I said, and sat down in the lobby. At 7:50, the first ripple hit. 2 executives rushed through the glass doors, voices tight. I couldn't make out words, but the energy was unmistakable. The tone of people who've realized a house of cards just shifted. Phones lit up. Slack notifications stacked like fireworks. A manager from finance nearly tripped over a chair answering her phone, face pale. My own buzzed. CEO, 9:15, Conference A. Please confirm. Confirmed. Then HR. Please proceed to room 412 immediately. That was fast. Room 412 was our neutral zone, where terminations, audits, and sensitive transitions happened. When I entered, 2 people were already there. Sarah from HR and Dan from legal. Both had that early morning look of people who got looped in on something they didn't yet understand. Sarah forced a smile. "Morning, thanks for coming in." "Sure. You were told not to come in today, correct?" "I was told that," I said. "I came to finalize access and hand off credentials, as documented in the memo." Dan's eyes flicked up. "Memo?" I placed the printout on the table. "Check your inbox. Subject line, document preservation and access handover." They both started scrolling on their phones. The silence stretched until Sarah's breath caught just slightly. Dan's lips moved as he read, eyes narrowing with each line. When he looked up again, his expression had shifted. Calm, precise. The look of someone mentally rearranging a chessboard. "Did you distribute this yourself?" "No. It was automated and pre-approved by counsel, your outside counsel to be exact. I used the hold process outlined in Policy 912. You'll find the hash verification attached." Sarah blinked like she'd been hit with a foreign language. Dan didn't. "Understood," he said quietly. Outside the glass, through the narrow blinds, I saw Mark stride past, phone to his ear, suit jacket half on. His face was crimson. He didn't look in. "Do you mind staying here until we clarify?" Sarah asked. "I don't mind. My badge is inactive anyway." She exhaled, stepped out, phone pressed to her ear. Dan stayed seated. "You've worked here." "How long?" 5 years. "And this material? How long have you been collecting it?" "Since my first unanswered compliance flag." He nodded slowly, then turned the page. "You understand this is going to move quickly now?" "I hope so." 8:10. Through the wall I heard raised voices. Mark's for sure, that low bark he used when pretending to sound calm. "Overblown. Context. Misunderstanding." Then the door opened again, and Sarah's face had changed. Pale now, controlled. "We'll need you upstairs," she said. The elevator to the top floor was silent except for the digital hum. The air thickened as we neared Conference A. The door was half open. Inside, the CEO stood by the window, arms crossed, phone on speaker. 2 board members on the other end. Mark sat at the table, jaw set. His laptop was open. Legal was already mirroring it onto the big screen. "Morning, Alex," the CEO said without turning. "Morning. Have a seat." I didn't. "Standing's fine." He gestured toward the screen. "These invoices, Did you compile this data? Yes. Can you explain what we're looking at? I stepped closer, pointed. Column A, invoice numbers from Colt River Solutions. Column B, internal purchase orders. Columns C through E, variance between deliverables billed and deliverables received. Column F, ACH timestamps matched against our general ledger. The pattern repeats every 2 weeks. Overbilling by roughly 14%, routed through an unregistered subvendor. The CEO turned his head slightly toward Mark. True? Mark's smile was small and tight. We've had integration hiccups. Alex misinterpreted cross-ledger timing. I placed another page on the table. Those hiccups include S extensions with forged sign-offs. Here's one. I pointed to the digital signature. That's my name. You'll notice the timestamp is 01:27 a.m. on a day I was on PTO. The system logs show it was initiated from Mark's admin credentials. The board line went dead silent for a moment. Then, Jesus Christ, one voice muttered through the speaker. The CEO straightened. Legal, you have what you need. Dan. Yes, sir. Chain of custody established. Mark shot up from his chair. You don't understand. These files could be manipulated. He's been... Sit down, the CEO said. Not shouted. Ordered. I watched him sink back, lips trembling. 8:45. The room smelled faintly of ozone and printer toner, the kind of smell that clings to panic. HR entered, whispered something to the CEO, who nodded. Security is disabling your access, Mark, he said simply. You'll remain here until further notice. Mark turned on me, voice cracking. You set me up. No, I said quietly. You set yourself up. I just stopped covering it. The words landed like a dull blade. No blood, no echo, just finality. At 9, the CEO looked at me again. Alex, thank you for bringing this forward responsibly. I understand you followed procedure. We'll debrief at noon with audit. You're excused until then. Understood. I left the room as Mark's voice rose behind me, muffled by the door. Downstairs, the lobby buzzed like a hive. Colleagues whispering, messages flying, IT scrambling to isolate servers. Someone from finance ran by, clutching a folder. The atmosphere of a company realizing the person they feared most had been made mortal. Lucas texted me, Is it true? They're saying Mark's out. I replied, Focus on work. You're safe. 10:10 a.m. I walked to the small cafe on the corner, ordered black coffee, sat by the window. My reflection in the glass looked steady, maybe even lighter. The company's skyline loomed behind me like something I'd already outgrown. Then the phone buzzed again. Private number. I answered. Silence. Then Mark's voice, quieter now, cracked with something that almost sounded like disbelief. You have no idea what you've done. I do, I said. I read the policy. Click. By 10:30 the chaos was complete. Legal sealing drives, HR drafting statements, the board calling an emergency session. From my cafe seat, I watched the building pulse with activity, like a body realizing it's bleeding internally. I didn't feel triumph, only gravity. Actions had weight, and this one was landing exactly where it should. I took another sip of coffee, opened my email, and typed one line to myself. System integrity confirmed, outcome pending. Then I closed the laptop and finally let myself exhale. 11:37 a.m. When I walked back into the building, the temperature had shifted. Not the air, the atmosphere, quieter, sharper, like the sound before a glass breaks. People averted their eyes the way you do when you see someone carrying a fire through a hallway. I didn't blame them. News spreads fast in companies that run on fear. At reception, the guard didn't even ask for ID this time. Go on up, man, Terry murmured. They're waiting. The elevator climbed slow, too slow. Somewhere between floors 5 and 6, my reflection in the mirrored wall looked like a version of myself I didn't recognize. Composed, almost serene. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was the part of me that had already detached. When the doors opened, legal was waiting. Dan gestured me into a conference room already crowded. Audit, HR, 2 board members dialed in, and, to my surprise, the CFO. face gray and drawn like he'd been awake since dawn. The CEO sat at the head, sleeves rolled, no tie. The table was littered with folders, highlighted contracts, coffee cups, and 3 laptops, all mirroring the same screen. The audit log. Dan started. We've verified the invoice trail. It's consistent with Alex's documentation. External counsel is initiating contact with Colt River Solutions. The CFO rubbed his forehead. They're panicking. Their account manager tried to call me twice. He's claiming Mark approved rate escalations verbally. The CEO's voice was low. He didn't have authority to do that. Dan nodded. Correct. Policy requires dual sign-off. There's evidence of falsified signatures. The CFO looked at me. You saw this coming. I saw patterns, I said. You ignored them. He didn't argue. A knock at the door. HR poked her head in. We've locked his access. It is imaging his drives. Good, said the CEO. Keep him off the floor. That's when the door opened wider, and Mark walked in anyway. No one had expected him to. He looked hollowed out, suit jacket off, shirt clinging, phone in hand like a weapon. You think this is finished? His voice cracked halfway through the sentence. You think an audit will cover your ass when the investors start asking why you let this little crusader? Sit down, said the CEO, same tone as before. He didn't. He jabbed a finger toward me. You've been plotting this for months. You hacked. Mark, interrupted Dan, calm and precise. We have logs. We have timestamps. Every action Alex took is compliant. What we don't have are explanations for your signatures. He froze. The air changed again, smaller, tighter. Sit, the CEO repeated. Mark sat. Slowly. The next 20 minutes were a blur of numbers, questions, confirmation emails, system logs. Each line another nail in a coffin no one wanted to admit existed. I answered only when asked, keeping my voice level. Every answer began with a date and ended with evidence. Nothing personal. The less emotion, the more it hurt him. At one point, the CFO whispered something to the CEO. The older man leaned back, sighed. All right, he said. Mark, you're suspended effective immediately pending investigation. Security will escort you out after we finish here. Mark's head dropped. For a moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. But then I remembered the night he cut 10% of my team and called it an opportunity for resilience. That pity evaporated. He looked up at me one last time. You think they'll protect you? You'll be radioactive after this. No one hires a whistleblower. I met his eyes. Then I guess I'll glow in the dark. It broke something in him. I saw it. The words landed without noise, but his face collapsed like a structure losing tension. He stood, muttered something I couldn't catch, and walked out. The door shut soft behind him. Silence. The CEO rubbed his temples. All right, damage control. Dan, coordinate with PR. CFO, talk to audit committee. Alex, he looked at me. You stay put for now. We'll talk after the dust settles. Understood. He left. One by one they followed until only I was left with Dan. He studied me for a moment. You handled this better than most? You had counsel? Yes. Smart. He slid a piece of paper across the table. Official whistleblower protection acknowledgement. Sign here, keep a copy. I signed. When I stepped out, the hallway was half empty. The office felt suspended, waiting for gravity to return. I walked toward my desk, out of instinct, though I knew it wasn't mine anymore. My monitor still glowed with yesterday's tabs. Slack had gone silent. I scrolled through unread messages, most from my team. Lucas. HR called me in. They said our pay is being reviewed. Is that good? Me. That's very good. Nina. Are we safe? Me. Safer than before. Then another ping. CFO. Need clarification on your documentation timeline. Come to my office. I went. His door was open, his face buried in spreadsheets. Close it, he said. When I did, he looked up, eyes red-rimmed. This is bad. Real bad. Those layoffs we justified. Mark inflated vendor costs to offset them. We'll have to reinstate severance, maybe back pay. The board's already discussing restitution. That's the right move. Yeah, but they'll look for someone to hold accountable. I need to know. Do you have anything else? I have everything you've already seen, I said. He studied me for a moment and then leaned back. You know, for what it's worth, you did the right thing. I didn't do it to feel right, I said. I did it to stop bleeding. When I walked out, my phone buzzed again. Lucas. They just reinstated our overtime pay. Direct deposit says adjustment pending. I smiled for the first time that day. Good, I typed back. Don't celebrate. Just rest. By 2 p.m., legal had commandeered half the floor. HR posted an internal memo. All staff will receive updated payroll corrections. No retaliation permitted. Any concerns should be directed to the compliance hotline. The words were dry, but to my team, they meant oxygen. I sat in a quiet conference room, staring at the city skyline through glass walls. My reflection looked smaller now, but lighter. This was what accountability felt like, messy, procedural, but real. Then the door opened softly. The CEO, no entourage, no file, just him. Alex, he said, closing it behind him, you've put us in a storm, but it's one we probably needed. I didn't do it for the company, I said. I did it for the people under me. I know, he paused. Audit will finish tonight. We'll likely terminate Mark officially tomorrow. You'll have protection through counsel. There may also be discussions about your role moving forward. I understand. Good. He turned to leave, then hesitated. You could have gone nuclear. You didn't. That matters. I just followed the process, I said. He nodded. Process is what keeps us from chaos. When he left, I finally allowed myself to breathe deeply for the first time all day. Outside the window, the storm clouds that had hovered all morning finally broke, and rain streaked the glass in long, clean lines. It looked like the building was being washed. My phone vibrated one last time. A message from Lucas again. They're saying he's gone. I typed back, then start fresh. We all do. At 3:12 p.m., HR sent the final calendar invite. Exit interview, 4 p.m. I closed my laptop, slid it into my bag, and whispered to the empty room. Almost done. 4:00 p.m. Conference room. B smelled like new paper and nervous air. HR had replaced the usual termination folders with plain manila ones. No labels, no stamps, nothing that screamed consequence. Sarah sat across from me, her expression a strange mix of professional and regretful, the way someone looks when they've been told to keep a poker face at a funeral. She slid a form across the table. This is standard procedure. Exit acknowledgement, property checklist, confidentiality clause, though in your case legal's already cleared that last one. I signed where she pointed. No trembling, no hesitation. My hand moved the way it always does when I'm closing a ticket that's already resolved. When she finished, she folded her hands. Alex, for what it's worth, this morning was hard on everyone, but you did something important. Didn't feel like hero work, I said. It rarely does. She smiled faintly. You should know, the board's reinstating the payroll, and they're auditing all vendor contracts. Your name's coming up a lot, in good ways. Let's keep it out of the headlines, I said. Her smile turned real. Already handled. As I stood to leave, she added softly, He's gone, you know. Mark, she nodded, escorted out around 3, didn't say a word. I didn't react. There wasn't anything left to say. People like Mark don't implode in public. They deflate quietly, like a balloon you stop holding. In the elevator, I watched the floor numbers fall. 12, 7, 3, lobby. Each chime sounded cleaner than the last. Terry was still at the security desk, a sandwich half unwrapped beside him. Hey, he said, leaning forward. You okay? I think so. He nodded toward the envelope slot. You forgot your badge this morning. I smiled and dropped it in. Not anymore. Outside, the city had changed temperature again. Bright, crisp, rinsed by the afternoon rain. The glass towers glimmered like they'd never held secrets. I crossed the street, walked past the cafe, and took a seat at the same window where I'd watched the chaos unfold hours earlier. This time the building looked calm. No flashing badges, no rushing managers, just reflections of clouds sliding slow across mirrored glass. My phone buzzed once, an email. Subject, offer letter. Confirmed. I opened it. It was from the other company, the one I'd spoken to weeks ago, the one that said, "If things ever go sideways, call us first." Now it was official. Start date, salary, relocation package. I scrolled once, then stopped. I didn't need to read the rest. The words that mattered were already bolded in my mind. "Welcome aboard." A message from Lucas followed seconds later. "Everyone just got back pay, some of us months' worth. They're calling you a legend." I typed back, "Tell them to stop. Legends die early. Just keep your hours clean." He sent a laughing emoji, the first one in days, and wrote, "Boss move, though." I didn't reply. I set the phone face down on the table and let the silence settle. The good kind, the earned kind. Through the window, I could see the revolving door spin. Mark's nameplate was already gone from the wall. A janitor peeled off the vinyl letters from the glass panel beside his office. Little curls of adhesive caught in the light. The CEO stepped out moments later, phone pressed to his ear, a weight gone from his shoulders. He didn't see me across the street, and that was fine. I wasn't part of that world anymore. When I finished my coffee, I opened the small leather notebook I'd carried for 5 years. The same one I'd used for change logs, team notes, quick sketches of systems that no one else cared about. I flipped to the last page and wrote 5 words, the only ones that felt right. Everything documented. Nothing destroyed. Done. Then I tore out the page, folded it twice, and slipped it into my pocket. The rest of the notebook, years of code snippets, workflow charts, patches of burnout and breakthroughs, I left on the table. It belonged to a version of me who still believed loyalty and silence were the same thing. I stepped outside. The air smelled like asphalt and ozone, the aftermath of rain. My reflection followed me in the mirrored windows. Not heroic, not ruined, just clean. Halfway down the block, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Alex?" A woman's voice. Calm, older. "Yes." "This is Amanda from the audit committee. I just wanted to tell you. The board reviewed everything. It's airtight. You did exactly what you were supposed to do." "Glad to hear it." "You'll be cited in our report for procedural excellence," I laughed quietly. "That's the best compliment I've ever gotten." She paused. "You're a good man, Alex." "I'm a thorough one," I said. The line clicked, then ended. I walked the next 2 blocks without looking back. Each step felt like a release valve turning slowly. At the intersection, a bus rumbled past, its side covered with an ad that read, "Tomorrow starts here." I smiled. Timing's funny like that. When I reached my car, I opened the door, dropped my backpack on the passenger seat, and sat still for a few seconds. The kind of stillness that tastes like clean air after too long underground. My phone vibrated one last time. A text from an unknown number, but I didn't need to check. I already knew who it was. "Mark, you'll regret this." I stared at it, thumb hovering. Then I typed back the truth, word for word. Already lived with worse. Send. Then I powered the phone off, started the engine, and pulled into traffic. Slow, deliberate, steady. The city thinned behind me, shrinking in the rearview mirror until it was just a skyline of glass and stories. And as I merged onto the highway, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Calm eyes, steady hands, no tremor left. He texted, "Don't come in tomorrow." I replied, "Don't check your email." And for the first time in years, I didn't owe anyone an explanation.